it's a worthwhile question to have, especially in light of being
Mm.
post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I think church is complicated for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I remember for me, I really got highly adjusted to not having to go to church for
me
those,
too.
what was that, a year and a half?
Yeah.
What about you?
I did. I was like, yo, I can see all the NBA games. I don't have to miss none. I don't have to watch no reruns.
Yeah.
You know, gained a little weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got really, really comfortable. And also too, I seen a lot of people kind of go, returning back to church lately, but a lot of people didn't, and I think a lot of people kind of said, man, do I really need church? I said, do I really need the community? But then I had a flux of people saying, I really realized how much I needed community and how much community, not having community really affected me. So I think it just kind of affected people in different ways.
I have a theory, and I don't have a word from God to prove it per se. But I often thought, I wonder if in the amount of time that we did not have, that we weren't gathering together in a local church, if there was a particular grace that God had given Christians, right? Because He knows we can't gather because people are dying and people are sick, and it is a whole pandemic where it's just because you had the grace, it doesn't mean that the grace is still going to be extended, right? Like where He was being merciful towards us to preserve us in light of our inability to gather. But now that we have the ability to gather, I would not presume that grace is still present.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good thought. But also too, I remember during the pandemic just briefly thinking about all the things that God is doing, because God is always doing so many different things when we just kind of focused on one. And so I was thinking about the people who took community for granted. How are you understanding the significance of community for the people who kind of take being in a church community lightly. For me, there was a comfortableness, but it was also a longing for being connected to the church body. You know what I'm saying? And I was just wondering if all the people who took the church for granted in the past, did that affect them in a particular type of way? Because I know it affected me.
I think the pandemic, it brought to the surface and kind of reinforced any disconnection that was already pre-existent.
What do you mean?
So with us, we still didn't necessarily feel super connected to our church. We were there.
Yeah.
But we didn't necessarily have those intimate relationships that we had in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so with the pandemic, it didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Yeah.
It just was, there's no building anymore, but I still feel the same.
Yeah.
I think if people were already disconnected, then it kind of reinforced that idea of, why am I, which is a lie to say, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need them. Because that is the metaphor, or the metaphor of body that Paul consistently speaks to in the Gospels, has this idea of these different members, these individual people, beings, all being united in one body under one head, right? And so to say that I don't need other Christians is to completely go against the whole grain of the New Testament and even the Old Testament.
Yeah.